Well, I'm going to be talking about something that I'm very, very passionate about, and it's education of private landlords. And then I'm going to go on to regulation, and you think, oh, how does that work? But it actually does flow, and you'll see how it flows. It's very, very integrated. Oh, yes. So who is this David Pearce? It's very important that you actually know who I am, because there's actually many commentators out there in the property management game who say that they're experts or they're specialists. But what happens is that I've actually got a unique ability in that I was actually in real estate. I was a branch manager, salesperson, branch manager for Harcourts. I did a stint in Dannevirke. Who's ever been to Dannevirke? I lasted 6 months, sorry. But then came back and actually was branch manager for Havelock North Tremaines. They gave me the ability to say, they said to me, turn it around in 6 months or we close it down. We did. We turned it around, not closed it down. And then they gave me the Hastings office, which had a property management department. And so that was quite interesting. So I actually learned, when all the conferences, I know everything, the inside of how real estate people think. And at the conferences, they'll tell you, and all the speakers will tell you, that there's 2 reasons why you have a property management department in real estate. The first one is to actually provide the resources or the funds to keep the flash offices open when the sales dip. The second reason is that you've got a pool of properties and you want to sell 10% of them every year because you make 10 times more money selling them than managing them. The interesting thing, and those speakers never went on to say why it's important to actually look after those clients and give them good service, but that was the thrust of why they actually are in that area. The second one is I then went on after a while. I went in and started up and pioneered Quinova Property Management. Notice the date I was out before. Quinova in Hawke's Bay, and I started off with 0, and we ended up, after 4 years, 360 properties. Been very involved with it, being an award winner. They sent me off to Australia to a conference. And at the end of the day, at the end of it, I sold in separate into Napier and Hastings offices. So I actually know about property management there. After I got out of there, vowing never, ever, ever to go back into property management ever again, I then actually came back and I actually started Pukeko Rental Managers and tried to do something differently, and that's what I'm still doing today, and at the moment there's 23 of us. So when it comes to having an overview or an understanding of the different parties involved in property management, I actually do understand it very well. And I want to actually talk about landlords, because at the end of the day, it's a term that's used. I hear yesterday it was actually used for owners. I have a problem with that, because at the end of the day, in a management agreement, you actually act as the landlord. But landlords, if you go to the tenancy groups, they'll all say, oh, landlords, okay. And they actually have all those Facebook campaigns, and everything that happened about 18 months ago was landlords get tarnished with the thing, but you don't know who they're talking about. Are they talking about the real estate property managers? And that's, as we know, with real estate property managers, we actually find that they're actually very sales focused, aren't they? That's their whole thing. So they're all about sales. And whenever I go to a conference, and just last year, July, I went over to Australia, especially to get updated with what's the latest trends, what's happening in property management. And all it was the whole room was filled with business development managers. I actually didn't meet any actual property managers on the ground actually doing the job. It was all about sales, 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 getting those sales. And that's why we do get upset in property management. We actually have people going out there and they've got to get the sale for their office, and so they'll actually come out with rental appraisals. And there's one example that I've got in Silverdale where I know of that a branch manager wrote out a rental appraisal for $900. In fact, the best rent we could ever get for that property was $720. And it's just, there's the lack of integrity in it. The other thing is that it's segmented. I'm just finding out recently that it is very segmented. So you've actually got the big players. I was in Harcourts, I was in Professionals, but you've also got Barfoots and Ray Whites and all those ones. They've got their own very much silos, very much different training, and I'll talk about that later when it comes to regulation. So again, REINZ say they represent people, but again, you've actually got this very segmented operation. But the worst thing is that there's a growing trend at the moment with real estate companies. They're looking to people, companies, the bigger companies, and they're admiring them for the amount of money that they're making. And I've actually met property managers. I remember very clearly in Hollywood, in Henderson, meeting with a lady from one of the companies. She's actually looking after 300 apartments in central Auckland. When I was actually having a coffee with her, she was like that. They actually told her that if she actually couldn't do the better job with the 300 properties, that they actually have to start reducing her wages down from 75,000. So she just wanted to have a chat about it with me. The interesting thing is that I actually worked out they're probably making $750,000 worth of fees, management fees from her. So again, it's that corporate thing, and they're looking at them and saying, wow, you know, that's what we should be expecting. We should be expecting each of our property managers to look after 300. Again, another big company in Wellington, went and had a talk with two nice ladies. One did Upper Hutt, one did Porirua, both actually looking after 300 properties, want to get out of the industry, want to be burnt out. In fact, after listening to them, I've come to the conclusion that we actually have got in the corporate real estate property sector, we've actually got them treating people like slaves. They don't do any surveys, but the last survey I saw of Australia is that the actual property managers were tuning over every 7 months on an average. And I don't think it's actually much better here when I talk to some of these people who are in the industry. So that's really quite concerning. The next area is the specialist property managers. A lot of us here will call ourselves specialists. We basically either work from starting off from a home office, or otherwise there's the other ones who have the offices. That's great. But let's get real about this. I'm actually not going to pull any punches. You guys are here because you actually want to do a good job. So I'm not actually preaching to you, but you actually, all of us here, I would actually bet money that all of us here know if MB came along and said, well, is there somebody that you know is not doing a very good job as a specialist property manager? Could you point them out to me? We'll go and do an audit. You'll know who that person is in your town, in your city. Now that's scary. Because as a landlord, whatever one you are, we're actually going to be tainted with that same brush when it hits the media. Perfect that Pete was on just before me. And then there's the private landlords. With them, I actually put down 50%. Yesterday, we were told by Ashley that it was actually 66%. I believe it's somewhere in the middle, but again, it's a significant part of the private properties that are out there actually run by private landlords. And do they do a good job? Yes, they do a fantastic job. Yes, you actually got hobbyists and like in the property investors. Again, you've got a segment of them that do a great job. But I want to be really real. I went and visited my daughter in Johnsonville, and I said to her, hey, there's no smoke alarms in this property. And she said, no. I said, oh, okay, well, show me your tenancy agreement. And she showed me a picture of the front page of the tenancy agreement that she was given by the landlord. That was it. I said, okay, where's your rent statement? Well, we don't get any rent statements. Okay, that's fine, but on Monday, because it was a Sunday, I said, on Monday, go and check and see if your bond's been lodged. She gave me a ring. She said, no, the bond hasn't been lodged. Now, is this just a one-off occasion? Is this just happened? No, it's not. In New Lynn, I took over a property. Chinese couple, they gave the flat or the house to their daughter. She actually lives in Pearce, so she employed me to look after it. That was really good. Okay, can I please have the bond transfer form? Or the bond's not lodged. Okay, can I please have the rental statement so I can actually show, since the tenant's been going, no rental statements? Okay, what about the installation? No, that's not been done. So again, I had to actually create a tenancy agreement and start it all off from scratch to try and protect that landlord. Now, I'm not the only one who's had that. Anyone had taken over from a private landlord? This is reality. And the thing is, what I came down to is that I actually, all my years, I didn't want anything to do with private landlords. I thought, let them do their own thing, let them be independent like they want to. But then I started to realise we're missing a huge opportunity. And the instigator for me was, I actually had to change my attitude. Because again, if they're 50 to 66% of the market, we don't have to worry about the opposition down the road. It's all these private landlords. So in the end, it came down to, well, what are we offering them? We'll offer them casual letting. That's a service that most of them want because they actually haven't got the facilities to do it. What about free rental appraisals? You know, do you actually actively promote to these private landlords the free rental service, or free advice, or credit checking service? Because a lot of them don't have that ability. I was just talking to one yesterday who actually didn't have the ability to. He's had tons of problems with tenants. It's because he hasn't got the facilities to check them. But what we've got to do is, I actually honestly believe that people will make good decisions about their business and about what they're doing if they're educated. And at the moment, they just don't know what they need to know. It's as simple as that. So in the casual letting agreement, when I go and do it, I actually had a lady who was actually just going to do them. She was doing a lot of casual lettings. I said, can I go with you? And because I actually think there's an opportunity to educate. So what I've done is they had the MB compliance checklist. Now this is gold. The MB compliance checklist gives a whole list of things, if they're audited by MB, just the same as we are as landlords, what they actually have to have when they're checked. So what I did is I actually took it along with me to these two opportunities where she was going. I said, right, I'm going to come along with you when you do this casual letting. And I actually delivered to them the MB compliance checklist and just told them, have you done you do meth testing, have you got the smoke alarms in the right places, and that sort of thing. And you could see their eyes glaze over and they say, yeah. And then what I came in is I've developed this, what landlords need to know, and it's a history from 2010 of all these changes in the industry to let them know. So it's educating them. And what happens is that in one case, beautiful property, $850 a week, a lifestyle property, we left there, says, thank you. And if you need any advice, let us know. Hope this information helps. And on the Monday, we got an email to say, I think you'd better manage the property for us. And it's really important, I think, to actually educate them for that reason. But wait, there's more. I actually found that we're actually having so much success with this that the next step was, whoops, wrong way, sorry. As I've started a landlord training website. And then it says, are you thinking about becoming a landlord but have no idea where to start? Ready to become a landlord? Running a residential property is like running a business. You need to have the right knowledge, support and training to succeed. What I've done this for is I actually encourage all private landlords is to do the course and know that they're actually doing the job properly. But the reality is that when they go through and like the MB checklist and find out what they have to do, they then will make a good decision as to whether they've got the time and the effort to do the job properly or to give it to a property manager. Now I want to talk about regulation. At the moment, let's pull this over here. At the moment, you've got REI and Z. And what are they saying at the moment? What's their cry? Sorry, I'll just... Regulate under REA, isn't it? That's what they say. Everything that happens bad in the property management, where it's a private landlord or where it's any of them, they don't talk about their own cases, like the Harcourts and the Ray White, where they've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars for clients, but they actually, every time it's got to be regulated under the REA, and that's what they say. So the other one is private landlords. Now, what do private landlords say? What are they saying to the media at the moment?
Costs too much.
They're saying, leave us alone. So I know it's after lunch, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to split you down the middle, and I want this side here to actually chant, regulate under REA. This will wake you up, all right? So let's do it 3 times. Regulate under REA. Regulate under REA. All right, great, that was really good, but not as good as this side, I don't think. This side here, I want you to be private landlords, and I want you to say, leave us alone, leave us alone, leave us alone. Now, all together in your different groups, all together.
Leave us alone, leave us alone, leave us alone.
Okay. That's cool. No, it's very, very good. But that's what the media out there is hearing at the moment. With specialist property managers like ourselves, what's the message? What's our point of difference? What are we saying about this issue of regulation? It's an issue though, isn't it? You know, the others are quite clear. Oh, sorry. It's broken. But at the moment, we've been told it's 550,000 properties. This is not New Zealand Housing Corp. This is just private ones. And they're saying around, I don't know, 2/3 are private landlords and the rest are property managers, either real estate or specialist ones. Oops, too far. How'd that happen? So at the moment, you've got REA, and what are they saying? Under REA, great. Who is to be regulated under the REA? Yeah, so this is this. What really is going to be good for tenants in New Zealand if this part's regulated and this is completely unregulated still? How is that going to make any real difference? That's my question. I have a real trouble with the government bringing in all these legislation that we've actually been hearing about to improve the quality of the experience for tenants, when I've already told you that there's actually a lot of private landlords who don't even know what the changes were done in 2010. There's still people managing their properties from China or Australia. So that's a real concern. How do they get to them? They can't actually get to them that easily because MB tell us they don't know who they are. Why? Because out of that 550,000, Keys tells me, go to this website and we find out that there's only 390,000 bonds lodged. They don't know who they are. I'm finding that it's at least 50% of the private landlords do not lodge their bonds. So they don't know who they are to educate them. So how can you have this big change and have an improvement in the industry if it's just going to be this group here? So what's the answer? Well, the answer is, I believe, licensing of landlords. It's just like a simple situation. You've got, if you drive a car, you've got a car license, you've got to prove that you know what the rules are, what the regulations are, what you need to do, what your responsibilities are. If MB are really serious in saying that basically this is a business, then people need to know what they need to be doing. Even for just to minimise the risk that they have towards themselves. So that's really important. So they need to know who they are. How are they going to need to know? They're only going to need to know by having a license. And again, if you have a license, if you go on the road and start speeding 200 k's down the road and get pulled over for a traffic cop, what happens to your license? You lose it. Well, again, that means if someone actually behaves and is bad, they'll lose their license. So what people have said to me, but David, this is too hard. All right, if it's too hard, why is it? Well, you know, how do they go about educating the landlords? I've actually just said that there's actually, I'll give them an example, there's even one course I know of where they can actually go and get educated and say that they've actually passed a course and actually know what they're doing. So, is it too hard? I don't think so. Basically, if you actually have a look, in Wales are already doing it. They are I believe, are doing a really, really great job of sorting out the industry where they are. Rent Smart Wales, have a look at their websites. Basically, it's about educating landlords, educating tenants, but they call property managers agents. An agent is like if you're going for a license, a car license, you actually get your license, but if you want to go for a heavy traffic license and, or a bus license, it's a higher level. So property managers have that higher level. My challenge to the MB is if they're willing to bring that in and actually license landlords, we Prominz can actually look after having a separate professional body, property managers for property managers that can look after the other side of it. They actually have register as a landlord. there's self-managing, and then there's external training providers. And again, I don't really mind if the property investors put their hand up if they formally do it some way, but again, it's actually educating these people. And there's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of private landlords who just simply don't know what they're doing, and we, as landlords, are getting tarnished with that, as far as the tenant associations are concerned. And in Wales, it covers the whole area. So that's my presentation. I'm passionate about it. I don't know how else to do it. I don't think that we can actually wait to actually see that REA is going to, we come under them. That would be the worst thing. I wouldn't be having anything to do with property management, because I've been in that camp. I know what they're like, and it's actually, they're very good at sales. They're very good at marketing, but they don't actually, while they talk the talk, they don't walk the walk. The other side is the private landlord, something has got to be done about it. It's actually diabolical out there. So that's my suggestion, is landlord licensing, and then Prominz will actually step up and be the professional body for the industry. So it's, with this one here, it's regulated under REA. This side over here is what? Leave us alone. But I want all of you to actually come out with licensed landlords. Come on, licensed landlords, licensed landlords. That's got to be the clear message that we're sending out there. That's going to be the point of difference. And I actually think that everybody that I've talked to and explained this to them, I haven't met one person who said, it makes sense. That's what they've said. It makes sense to do this. So that's my challenge for you to think about. Have I run out of time?
Yeah. I've got some questions.
Yeah.
Have a microphone. We're going to be the loud ones.
Oh, okay. So that's my presentation. Again, to sum up, it's don't treat private landlords as the enemy. Find some way of building a bridge to them. Help them build that relationship. And as soon as they hit trouble, who are they going to call? They're going to call you. Them too, yeah. All right, I'll open for questions. No questions? Yes.
Okay, can we just swap you to lectern? And
Yes.
then we can... Sorry?
Ooh.
I'm not going.
Where is it?
Lovely, thank you. Thank you. Brilliant. We do have, yep.
Thank you. Do you know what the incentives and penalties are for becoming licensed as a landlord in Wales, for example?
What they did in Wales is they actually gave a 2-year period for people to actually license and actually do the course. That 2 years is over now. There is a fine. I actually don't know what the fine is, but there is a fine if you actually haven't licensed. You've got a year to actually, from registering to actually have your qualification, or to say that you've done the course. And it's not an onerous course, but again, it's the whole thing of trying to lift the standard of the whole industry. And that's the problem that I think that the government's got, and I think this is an answer for it.
Can I add to that? I am connected on the Rent Wales Twitter feed or whatever it might be, and they have, in fact, a bit like MB here, started their very public regime of enforcing compliance. I think it's a bit of a softly approach at the beginning, more, you need to get registered rather than we're going to slap you with a giant fine, but they have already started that. Does that answer your question? Any other questions? Marvellous. Well, thank you, David. I've had enough chanting. I don't know about anyone else, but yeah. Thank you very much, David.